One. That's fucking loud as shit. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 90% podcast. My name is Nick Iula.
I'm Mike Iula.
And today we have a special guest, and his name is
Dante Albanese. What's going on, folks?
Yeah, that's Dante. He's our good friend, and we're excited to have him on this podcast and talk from the hip, right? We have no idea what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we've had episodes in the past with people, only a couple so far, where we've kind of had a relative script, just some generalized questions, and there's nothing wrong with doing it that way. We just feel like with Dante, the best content that we can get is going to come from shooting from the hip, so that's pretty much what we're going to do today.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
See where this road takes us.
I'm definitely excited to have you on because there's just nothing better than when you have like a tight group of friends and you can kind of just talk about whatever. So I'm really interested to see where this one goes.
I agree, because pretty much every time we hang out, you never know where it's going to go.
Yeah, that happens a lot of the time.
Yeah. So I guess we'll get started with how we met, and it's very similar to Jaden, and we'll keep it brief just because, like, we've just come to the conclusion that no one really cares about the sob stories. Like, we're a happy group of people. We've all been through some stuff, but this one's really going to be about who we really are, and when we hang out, we have a good time. So let's just keep that energy, boys.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
So first of all, I guess we met you in, 7th grade again, similar to summer camp.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, here we are. If you haven't seen the Jaden episode, you can find that on our channel where we talked about playing Foursquare and all those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't necessarily friends straight through, like, camp. I feel like we weren't necessarily close until we started running track in high school together.
Pretty much. So, honestly, when I moved here from Clifton Park, we all met at the same summer camp. I literally met Jaden first, and then, like, 20 minutes later, we were all playing jackpot right by the picnic tables or whatever. And he's like, hey,
Yeah.
you met these two yet? Their names are Mike and Nick. I was like, no, but what's up, boys? And you guys
Yeah.
are pretty much, like, my first friends here. And then when middle school came around, we didn't really have the same schedules and whatnot, so I didn't really see you all that often until, like, high school came around, like, sophomore year when I decided to run track, and then been best friends ever since. At least
Yeah.
I'd like to say we were.
Yeah, I would say it was a pretty meteoric rise, I guess, as far as our friendship went, right?
Meteoric rise.
Meteoric rise. That's a new one.
Yeah. And it just probably has something to do with the fact that, like, we were never in classes together, really. And the only time we truly, like, ran into each other would be, like, in any extracurricular activities after school, I feel like.
Pretty much. Whether it was pretty much just track after school, or eventually when Tilo started having friends over at his house, see you guys there all the time.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen the Tilo episode, we've also filmed one with him, so go ahead and check that one out as well. But yeah, we're all a tight niche group of friends, and I guess we can go back a little bit to talk about sort of how we first initially met. So you in general have moved around quite a lot growing up.
You could say that.
Especially in your early years and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that kind of like for you early on, and then sort of just moving to this school district and sort of meeting us and trying to find your way?
It was interesting growing up because there was a point in time where I wouldn't even spend more than 2 years in the same house. So I was always the new kid moving around, and it honestly helped me become more of like an open person because moving around all the time, you don't really get to keep the same friends. You're always constantly meeting new people and whatnot, and it just helped me like open up my circle and like really break down like my defense barriers and just get to meet as many people as possible, I guess. And the same thing rang true when I came to East Greenbush. Like, my first friend was first real friend here was Bobby. Mm-hmm. Shout out Bobby.
Yeah. Hey Bobby, how you doing?
Hope you're watching this. If you are, hope you're doing well.
Yeah.
But anyways, he was my first friend here for the longest time, and he honestly introduced me to like you guys, and that's kind of how we became like real friends in sophomore year of high school or whatever.
Yeah, it was like a networking thing, almost, in a sense.
Oh, absolutely.
It is cool. When you're from, our school district or I guess any district in this area, like, I feel like a lot of people meet through other people connections and stuff like that. And I remember you were probably friends with Bobby, right? Bobby and another kid before you met us, right?
Zach Olivan.
Yeah, Zach.
Shout out Zach.
That's cool. I don't. Maybe he'll
Yeah.
see it, but so then when we met, we were really close, like, from track,
Yeah.
and you ran what, like, not really sprints, but like mid distance.
Oh my lord! The first time I ever ran an indoor track meet, I ran the mile indoors at
Why?
Union. Exactly. I asked myself the same thing. I only ran it once. Got my ass kicked.
Yeah, well, I mean,
So maybe, the long distance wasn't your thing.
Not really. I mean, cross country was, but that was just fun running through the woods. It was just
Because at
complete
least
switch
then
up.
it's scenic as opposed to an indoor track where you're running circles multiple times over.
Exactly. And you've been to SPAC. You've walked through the parking lots. You've seen. Like,
Yeah.
It's pretty cool because you're literally running all through the woods and the amphitheater and the concert halls and literally everything. Back behind the gates where they usually have like the real long line of porta potties and whatnot and vendors and everything.
Yeah.
That's the start finish line.
Yeah, so
That's awesome.
Nick and I never ran cross country because at that time we were playing football, and even junior senior year we took that fall off to just work on school or whatever. But
work on school. We didn't do school.
yeah, we tried school at least. I mean, they pretty much told you had to go, so we were there. But
In high school,
yeah,
of course.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, so we don't really necessarily know what it was like for cross country, but like, how would you compare sort of cross country and track as far as like the levels of fun or even that kind of thing?
Levels of fun. I don't know if I put it that way. It was definitely enjoyable after the fact, and if it wasn't for the group of people that I got to run with on a daily basis, then I definitely wouldn't have stuck with it.
Yeah.
Because after doing a 10-mile run around the Columbia's campus in the August heat, you develop a special bond with these people that really can't be broken. And it's like, it was just like such a special friendship that I had with a few people, like Jared, Liam, and Dustin, not to name a few.
Yeah.
And that kind of just stuck all the way until we all went our separate ways for college and whatnot afterwards.
Right.
So I guess it was more of like a family thing more than anything in cross country that I
Yeah.
really enjoyed the most.
Since we're on the topic of sort of like friend groups and stuff like that, just curiously, I think everybody's gone through moments where they're with a particular group of people, and then next thing you know, life takes you on a different course, and that's just part of life. And for you specifically, it seems like you've moved around a lot, and you touched on that a little bit, but how is that as far as like being with a particular group of friends and then sort of meeting new ones and then seeing some come and go, but also still having the constant of like some particular group of friends? What's that like for you?
I don't mean any shade or disrespect in any way, so please don't get me wrong with what I'm about to say. It's told me to not be complacent. It's taught me to value the people that have stuck with me and stuck by me through all the hardships that I've had in my life. Like you guys specifically, I would do literally anything for you guys because you've done the same for me.
Yeah.
And that goes for other people within our friend group too. I do anything for you guys, and it's just taught me to value the people who just stick around more than the people who are there to just get something out of you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for whatever the reasons are in life, some people just come and go, not selfishly, but just people outgrow each other,
Absolutely.
And we all go down different paths and stuff like that. But it's not necessarily a bad thing if you outgrow somebody. And
Absolutely not.
I think in general it's important to realize no matter what the friend group is, whether it's like a bad thing or a good thing, like that's part of life. And I think, as long as you're happy in those places and stuff like that, then there's nothing really wrong with that. And, you should just appreciate the times you had with the people, that
I agree
kind
with
of
you.
thing.
I agree 100%.
So-
You should value the time that you spend with each other
Yeah.
more than anything. And one thing that I've learned through past relationships, romantic or not, is that even if people do come and go, even after the fact, it's almost your job to like figure out like why were they in your life? Like what were they there to teach you in a sense?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. I think, there's that term that gets thrown around with friendships and relationships. I feel like people are there in your life for a reason. And if it's for a good thing, then, you seek those rewards of those benefits and you have those good times, right?
Mhm.
But in some cases, if it goes sour, and if people they leave your life and you fight, you argue, or they were in your life at one point and you saw them differently before, and then, that now you see them a little bit different. The thing is, you can learn a lot about yourself, and there's a lot of lessons in those things. And every day, we learn whether we want to believe we're 100% who we want to be, or we're not where we want to be at all. At the end of the day, you're not going to stay where you are. You're not going to be who you are in 5 minutes, 5 years. Doesn't matter. We're all growing. And there's no rhyme or reason or right or wrong to how many people you have in your life. At the end of the day, at least in my opinion, I think success and happiness really comes from just being self-sufficient, number one, because we're stuck with ourselves, and number two, being okay with what you have going on in your situation, if you can control it or you can't. And I think that's where people get lost, especially with a day and age of social media, and people just feeling as if they're not fulfilled. I think it just comes down to so much at once and not enough fulfillment from what we already have. And I think that's our generation's downfall, is we, as a society and everyone our age, we feel as if we're not happy because we value so much more and everything is so fast paced. So sometimes it's really good to sit around and look at our friend group and say wow, we've been friends for a long time, whether it was consistent, there was breaks or we were doing other things with our lives. It is pretty cool. And we've already mentioned it on a couple of episodes with Jaden, and with Tilo. And it's just kind of, really nice to have you guys be around, and I'm excited for the future with all of us.
Oh, same here, 100%. Honestly, one thing that I wanted to touch on, I guess, is the self-love aspect that you brought up. I've really been taking a deep dive into that over the past 6 months now. Ever since the year started, I made a vow to myself that I want to be more comfortable in my skin, more confident. With daily interactions, whatever it might be. And I can firmly say, now that it's literally been 6 months to the day, that I have never been happier. I've never had a better connection between my mind, body, and soul. And I'm very grateful for everything that I have in my life. And it's honestly made me enjoy the time that we spend together more, because I'm not constantly worrying about a negative thing that Sally said to me last Tuesday. You know what I mean?
Sour Sally.
Sour Sally, exactly.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of names for our friends. When we're in certain, what is our nicknames that we give ourselves when we're
You're Paranoid Paul for
Paranoid
sure.
Paul, because it's my middle name.
You can also be Nervous Nelly, depending on the
Nervous
situation.
Nelly. That one's good.
Yeah.
What else? Nico Suave.
Nico Suave, you can't go wrong with that.
Nico Suave is a jerk.
Yeah, stay away from Nico Suave.
Yeah. If you see me out, don't talk.
He's a confident guy.
He's a confident guy.
Don't get in his way.
Imagine, yeah, it's so funny. We're like alter ego superheroes who have no filter. That's our problem.
Pretty much. Maybe that's why a lot of people fear our friend group. Maybe not. Maybe fear's not the right word. But
Fear's not the right word.
definitely not the right word.
You know what I really think it is, and it's not fear. I think it's just it's an external divide, maybe, because I don't want to. I'm on the inside, so how am I really to judge how people view our tight-knit friend group? And maybe there's people here that are watching this that don't even know who the heck we are, but there's 8 of us that have a group chat and we text it in every day, and it just seems like when we're approached sometimes by people, a lot of people are like, yeah, you guys are still doing your thing, whatever, this, that, and the other thing, and I don't want to call it envious, because who am I to say that, but I think people appreciate that, and it's really just there's other people that have those tight knit groups, and if I hope everybody can have a group of people that they relate to on that sort of level, and they can have to talk about personal things like this or whatever it may be. So
It doesn't even have to be 8 people. It can just be 1. It could be 2.
literally, there's no real like.
Yeah, that's true.
I just think the one thing I will stress is like try to work on making your relationships with people count. You know, that could literally go for just family or relative friends. You know, appreciate those people and try to like listen and learn, because you're never too old to learn anything or like, you know, be
That's
taught
true.
and
Very
that
true.
kind of thing. So, you know, I don't really know where I was going with that. I don't think there's really any place I was going with that, but I just sort of just started rambling on that.
I mean, I do get what you're saying. I mean, especially, it kind of goes back to what Nick was saying about the whole fulfillment thing. Like, especially in our generation nowadays, it's people can't really form those deep, special connections with other people, because if, say, they're in a room, they're all watching TV together, but no one's talking, some people just get the fulfillment of whipping out their phone and going on social media and seeing what
Yeah, that's
Gary
a
was doing the
whole
other day. I don't know.
that's a whole different beast. Is people just get so gravitated towards these phones, and this is nothing new. I feel like we emphasize this as a generation, but yet nobody's willing enough to do anything about it, I think.
And we encourage it, because even my 4-year-old little cousin has an iPad that she's glued to 24/7.
Yeah.
That's all they do, like at family function and whatnot.
Talk about just like a generational divide. I mean, we might be the last generation of kids, maybe a couple years after us, that know what it's like to have a crazy imagination without devices.
Exactly.
I mean, we were literally pretty much, without knowing it, in our early teenage years, 12, 13, like we were pretty much taken out of our childhood. I mean, regardless, it was going to end because we were going to be teenagers. But like those last couple of years where we started to get those iPod touches or the iPads, like that stuff, like you don't even realize it until you look back now. Like that stuff pretty much took away the imagination period of your life. You know, how many 12-year-old kids in the generations before us were building tree forts and learning how to do all these cool different things and riding bikes together? And, you know, I still think that those things are prevalent in friendships, especially at those ages. I just feel as though the technology aspect of things can take away from the imagination or the creativity that some kids' true potential they've yet to even seek or whatever.
I just feel like it's not nearly as valued as it used to be, I guess.
Yeah.
iPhones really took away from that. I don't know.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, I feel as if our generation was lucky, because I remember being a kid, right? And you have this idea of what life's about, but you don't have like a gauge of how large this world really is and how dangerous being online actually is, right? And as technology has grown, there's been pros and cons to the situation with children nowadays. And like, this is more of an opinion more than like, I guess, facts. But from like my perspective, I look at children, right? And I see, you know, people who, and like our cousins are, you know, same thing. It's like they have technology and you can see the aspects of their childhood. Like they play with toys, like, and it's a little less common because you don't need toys if everything you want to do is surf, you know, on a phone. Like there's apps and stuff that you can do that can mimic the same feelings that we felt. Yeah. But I think like, although we might say it's really negative that they're stuck to these things and they're obsessed, and I think that's probably the beginning of the first real addiction, because phones are addicting.
Yes, they are.
But I think there's a good to it, because I think children are a lot smarter. While that is dangerous and a little scary because they are naive at that age and they can get into trouble, I think in a roundabout way, kids are exposed to more things, which is bad, but it's also good because in a sense it's like, you can see children nowadays hold and people are afraid, like, oh, because my child has social anxiety and they can't hold a real conversation without a device, blah, blah, blah. But I think these devices actually help children, number one, talk to their friend. Like if they have group chats at 8, 9, 10 years old, as dangerous as that is, I think in a way it almost develops character. I think we learn English a little bit better. Because if you look at children at 12, 13, 40 years ago, right?
So what you're saying right now is you're also looking at the pros and cons of these things.
Right. But I'm just trying to say, like, by the time children are 13, 14 years old, there's a lot of kids that literally sound like adults. Have you seen, like, people that are like that because if I talk to a 13-year-old, well, let's go like 10, 12, 11, especially because of like working with kids at camp, whatever, or you even see kids at your job, right?
Yeah.
If you look at them and they do things, I'm sure they impress you. They're probably really intelligent, and it's like, how in the world do they recognize those things? And I think that, again, as negative and as scary as it can be, I think our youth is going to be a lot more engaged and intelligent than we probably think. And I think it's also good because when they, learn more and they go to use technology in the real world, whether it's a job or school, they're more advanced. I feel like they just have a better understanding of like how to use tools, like, products and Apple. But I know it's a stretch of an argument, but like you can see what I'm saying with that. Like,
At least take those things into consideration, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I do get what you're saying. That generation of kids is obviously a lot smarter than we probably were at the same time, but they also are lacking in like social interactions or like street smarts, I guess.
Yeah.
That's true too.
You can get so cozy just sitting in your bed scrolling through Instagram for 6 hours instead of like what we used to do is jump right off the bus, grab our bikes, and go up to our friend Dylan's house and play football for 6 hours.
Our friend Dylan. Who's Dylan?
Oh, that's when I lived in Clifton Park.
Oh.
This was a long time ago, but that's what I used to do.
What up,
that
Dylan?
age or whatever. Exactly.
Hey, Dylan.
Who knows who you'll attract to this channel because of your name,
Exactly.
You
Who
never
knows
know
who might be
who's
watching.
going to show in and pop their head in.
It's the biggest network game.
For real.
But yeah, also, I think that you got to also keep these things in mind. On the flip coin of what you were saying about the positives, the other negative with the social interactions and stuff is like, maybe that's a good thing for that aspect. But when it comes to like putting yourself in a position to be heavily influenced to do things that will give you some sort of financial wage as you get older. And what I mean by that is like a job where it takes
Yeah.
That's really what I'm saying. It's like we are influenced by these YouTubers, TikTokers, social media influencers, and sometimes we forget that those blue collar jobs that they put in place. I don't even think schools really prioritize those because the reality is that market or whatever you want to call it isn't flooded with people going away for these blue collar positions. But the reality is the salary is going up for those people because there's a lack in need for those positions as kids get out of school. When you ask specifically, I saw this somewhere and it could be true, could not be, I don't know. It's on the internet, so it's got to be true. But they said basically like a lot of kids' dream jobs were to be social media influencers, YouTubers, that kind of thing. And, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you go back 15 years ago when we were kids, like we wanted to obviously be astronauts and singers and stuff. No, every kid dreams big, and there's nothing wrong with dreaming big. But I just think sometimes our generations are prioritizing the wrong things. The reality is, if it wasn't for the rise in social media, like I don't think you and I would be making this show in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe we would be like working under a car or something, like in a garage right now, making a wage. That's just something that you should think about because in 20 years, we're 40, 41 years old, which is crazy to think about.
Don't say that.
But it's going to fly. And the reality is, like, if you don't have those people to fill those positions, where are we going to be as a society? You know what I'm saying? And I understand that things are becoming easier and stuff, but, like, generationally speaking.
People aren't going to want to do jobs that are necessary. And it's like supply and demand. It's the most simple concept in the world. It's like if people don't want to be, construction workers, and I feel like that's a bad example because I feel like the demand for that's actually kind of high. But like, God forbid, one day our generation gets so lazy and they're so influenced by social media directly, and everyone's just focused on technology, but they're not thinking about like basic structure and engineering or anything like that, right?
Well, yeah, the reason the demand for construction is so high is because the supply is so damn low. Nobody wants to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to work out in the disgusting heat all day building a building for some rich guy, you know what I mean? Nobody wants to do that anymore. We all want to be the rich guy who as these construction workers work for us.
And
Someone's got to do it.
And like I said,
It's our
like I
motto.
said, there's nothing wrong with influence or some sort of intelligence. And I think with TikTok specifically, you've got a lot of life hacks, ways so you can make finances, and it looks easy because it's a 60-second clip of somebody showing you how to do something.
It's
and
all the get-rich-quick schemes, pretty much.
and that's really what it is, and we buy into these, and we keep scrolling as a generation. But the reality is, how many of those things that you save do you really go out and take the time to dedicate to yourself? Oh, I'm going to invest in the stocks here. Oh, there's a way that you can flip houses and stuff. Like, that's great. Now, don't get me wrong. There's probably people that go ahead and follow one of those paths and do an incredible job with making that a financial living for themselves. But not everybody can make an entrepreneurial empire out of their life. You know what I'm saying?
Not everybody can do it. It takes a lot of hard work and dedication. I can tell you that right now.
Right. And, I just think maybe something I'll stress is if you don't have that hardworking mindset and you feel like you want to do these things and you dabble in multiple things, you're never going to really get the results you want if you don't focus on one thing and put your all into it. So what I'll stress is that keep those things in mind, but there's nothing wrong with taking a different approach to making a financial living somewhere else, especially in positions that are willing to pay you a considerable amount to do it. And they're literally paying you to go to school to do it now. Like, they literally want you to go to school because the demand for people to fill those positions are so high, specifically blue-collar jobs. And I think that's something that's lacking in our generation, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Nobody wants to get their hands dirty anymore.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? It's like
I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
I just this is the 90% podcast, and we talk about mediocrity not being a thing. So I think it's funny that you stress the point that people should definitely, be okay with being average at a bunch of things and still being happy. But at the same time, it is very, again, we're not the 60% podcast. So it's
Yeah.
The point that Mike was making is very relevant to what we talk about, because it's Mike is saying, if you put 20 minutes of your time into something that you found online and 20 more minutes into something else, and you're just 20%ing everything, you're failing, for real. You know what I mean? It's taking an English test, a math test, drawing, an art photo, and starting all of it at once and being productive because you're getting things done, but never getting the chance to figure out how to finish any of them. It wouldn't make any sense, right? But you could be 90% accurate at a math test and really studied hard for it, and maybe draw a decent picture and get a solid ass grade, Yeah. But you never needed to really worry about the other subjects anyway, because you'll do those later. You know what I mean? So I feel if you give yourself a lot of effort, 90% at least, and save that 10% for your well-being, you might find that life's actually a little bit easier. And that's the problem with social media. We just talked about it. It's everyone is oh my God, they're quick paced. They're not content with anything. They get into a groove, and it's that instant. What's that instant gratification called in economics when it fails?
What do you mean?
Like
crashes?
The law of diminishing returns.
Is that what it?
I don't know, but there's
no,
not opportunity cost. There's another one.
What are you talking about?
Mr. Z, I need your help.
For real.
I was bad at economics.
For real.
What was that term that you
describe
used
it?
when something is immediately fulfilling and then it slowly starts to not be the
The
same?
law of diminishing returns.
That's
we're
what it
talking
is?
about. Yeah. So
Oh, okay.
a good
Maybe.
analogy for it is you have this real nice juicy bacon cheeseburger right in front of you, and you
Oh,
haven't
yeah,
eaten all day. Okay. The first bite that you take is gonna be the best. It's gonna be delicious. You're gonna be wow, I've been looking for this forever,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Okay.
And then when you take the second, it's not gonna be the same. And then by the time you get all the way to the end of the burger, you're gonna be why am I still eating this, kind of thing. Is
Yeah.
that what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, perfect.
But I feel people forget, when they have goals and they get into the group, even athletes, there's definitely athletes who get into a feeling of practice again. But that's what makes them great, because they might not have the same ambition about it, but if they put the same amount of effort into it, they're going to see results. And I think that goes for anything.
I get what you're saying, but there's also another reason for that. It's because everybody in our generation is just thinking short term. Nobody's thinking long term. Everybody's like, "Oh, I got to be a millionaire in the next 6 months, otherwise I failed at life." It's like,
I know.
slow down and pump the brakes real quick, okay?
Calm down, Nelly.
Like, exactly. Like if you really think about it, hopefully most of us will probably live to be 80, 90 years old. That's
Right.
what, 60 more years on this earth?
Yeah, we got some time.
And we're trying to make it in 6 months. Like, that's a
Remember-
little ridiculous.
Yeah, age is on your side.
Exactly.
I mean, youth.
So the one piece of advice I guess I'll share with everybody is that if you can come up with like a someday goal of somewhere that you want to be in your life and break it down into even like smaller, more obtainable goals that you can do in a shorter time frame, you'll eventually start working towards where you want to be someday, if that makes sense. So like, for example, I want to be financially free and see every corner of this planet. Okay.
That's a goal, yeah.
Exactly. That's a someday goal, whether it's going to happen in a year, 20 years, 40 years, I don't care. I'll get there someday. You know what I mean? But
You need a plan.
exactly. You got to come up with a plan, actually think it through for more than 5 seconds, and then actually put it into action. That's the only way you're actually going to get to where you want to be in life.
Call to action. I love that term.
Pretty much. And another thing that I've been like really like diving into is how powerful your mind like truly is. So the way your mind works is
Just gonna say it.
pretty much the way your mind works is, now I'm not a scientist, so don't really quote me on this, but I've found truth in it. It's whatever you say is like going on in your life, or like what you want to do, is what your brain is gonna like move you towards without even you thinking about it. So if you say, I'm depressed, I'm like in a hole, why is this happening to me? You're just going to drive yourself even further down into the pit of misery. You know what I mean? But if you say, oh, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to be rich and famous, I'm going to be a successful athlete, whatever you want to do in your life, your brain will eventually start moving you down that path without you even realizing it sometimes. And me saying that I want to be able to travel this world freely without a care in the world, like without having to worry about financials or anything like that. In the past couple months, I've actually been moving towards that, like reading a whole bunch of entrepreneurial books, working out consistently, which it has a lot of physical gains and a lot of
Mental, I'm sure.
more than anything.
Yeah.
Like developing a healthy, strong mind is honestly the key to winning in life. And I can say that with all of my heart and soul. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can't really stress that enough. And I don't think people in this generation get that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a roundabout way, I guess that's where I was going with that whole spiel.
That's exactly what I would have wanted to say if you didn't bring it up. So I think that was a good point. And I'm happy that you just mentioned that, because I feel like in a weird way, again, people are not satisfied with their lives. I feel like almost every single person, and everyone's their biggest critic, right? Like, and there's things that we can't change, and that's one thing that you actually can change, is not focusing on those, because you can't change it. And two, I think people also have to understand that there's never going to become a point of 100% satisfaction if you can recognize that. I think that's like the time you realize, like, I'm actually pretty good. And again, let's go back into the 90% podcast. If you tell yourself like shit, like, or you say all these negative things about yourself, you start to doubt it. You start to, you know what I mean? And it's like the moment you do something good for yourself, the moment you're like proud of yourself, you compliment yourself, and you don't, and also you surround yourself with good people. Like I'm so happy we have our friends too, because I feel like we always remind each other like why we're special and why we're good, and like that's why we're, you know, friends. But I feel like if you don't even have friends, or you're on your own, and you can remind yourself, like, people are going to buy into your own confidence. And I don't mean cockiness in the slightest, because again, those are the tryhards. Those are the 100%ers that no one likes. I'm talking about the people that are literally just, you know, happy with themselves, because people they're going to recognize that. Like, they're going to want to be around you because you're a happy person.
Just putting off a positive vibe. People want to be around that.
It's true. No one's gonna gravitate towards people who are negative, fake, you know, looking to hurt other people, things like that. So that's something to keep in mind if you're trying to work on yourself.
I agree.
Yeah. That was definitely not what I thought we were going to talk about. But
No,
Not at all. But
we went
okay.
we went with like the realness and like. in some cases, I think we keep it funny and natural, and we do get real. And then obviously in some cases, in real life, I guess, like we would say things and be a little less serious. But I think that was just what was on our mind and what we wanted to talk about. So I hope if you sat through this, you liked it. And those are our opinions. Please don't get offended if anything's kind of against.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think, coming into this episode, we did briefly mention that we had no clue where this was going to go. And I enjoyed doing this format, especially because literally every time we have somebody on, or if you come on, if we don't have a structure, sometimes this conversation could lead into some serious critical thinking. And, posing a question and striking a conversation gets, ideas out there and gets people thinking and spreading. I think that's healthy for a lot of,
Yeah. Absolutely. It gives you a different perspective on what you might be thinking.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing wrong with having a conversation and just seeing where things kind of dive into and that kind of thing. So, Dante, we didn't get too much into you personally, and that's okay because we will have you on here so many times over.
I'm okay with that. We have plenty of stories to share.
Yeah, and we just thank you for coming on, and it's been a pleasure having you. We look forward to having you on another episode very soon because I feel like we just have so many things to talk about, and our friendship is so strong that literally whatever we end up posing a conversation about, like it's going to be good. And you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I'm so glad you came on and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to add? Just you can go ahead and go off for 10 minutes, or you can say thank you to the people watching, or do you want to let anybody know what's going on? Anything like that, I'm going to give you the floor to sort of say what you want.
I mean, I guess I'll just keep it short and sweet for now, I guess.
Okay.
The only thing I could really say is, from what our conversation was, the past half an hour, however long it was, is just stay true to yourself.
Yeah.
Well, as long as you're happy with who you are, then you'll be surprised with what you can accomplish in this world. That's all I really have to say.
Yeah, and take those words seriously. I mean, we're all individuals, and being happy with yourself it's been emphasized a million times over, and people still somehow forget that, you need to love yourself. I mean, Justin Bieber made a song about it.
Love yourself.
Yeah, like
Justin Bieber.
I mean, I don't even know if you realize it, but that song means something. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So
What
anyway.
is that?
Calvin!
Let me show him to everybody.
Come here.
Aww.
Aw, look at that guy.
Hi. Hi to the camera.
Silly goober.
Where did you come from? All right. Well,
Welcome.
Calvin just, bombed our entire show. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Calvin. It's nice to see you, buddy. You're not gonna.
You're gonna knock over the set. What are you doing?
Calvin! Calvin.
All right, we gotta go. Get some orange juice. Have a good one. This has been the 90% podcast. See you guys on the next one.
Peace.
Peace.
That's a wrap.
That's so funny.
Calvin.